kind of a quick recap. Kind of focuses on design, order, organization. So we have repetition, variety, proportion, transition, emphasis, balance, the visual elements, which we actually talked about earlier before we got into this space, structure, and form. There's also some emphasis on creating from nature, which we get into a little bit later. So this textbook, I think it's a little tough to read sometimes, and so that's why the the additional readings have been posted to help you digest things a little easier, make them a little bit more understandable. So definitely read chapter 1, and then I would follow along with the patterning and transition. There's some readings, some videos that might help you understand that a little bit further. So set 4, again, this is the first from chapter 2. These are the smaller ones. So you have 2.1, which is phonetic lines. So an arrangement of disparate elements appears unified if all the elements are aligned in a common direction. Now this sounds really similar to what we've looked at before. Also, you want to think about Gestalt theory again. I keep saying that, but it's sort of a basic good foundation. So we'll repeat, combining, and superimpose. So 50 different vertical lines is what the textbook is asking. I say you can do vertical, horizontal, or even diagonal, but all of your lines need to be in the same direction. I believe you should really have a part of your hand with it. So I really want you to either, like, you can draw things with your hand or paint them and scan them in and have fun with that. Use the drawing tablets or playing around with the brushes, which there will be a brush demo coming. So there needs to be 50 different line variations. So your line should have different textures, different marks. Think about how we've worked with line within the previous sets and how you can keep the idea of a line evolving. And think about how you want to organize this out. So getting artists for inspiration was a little more difficult because this, again, is one of the more specific studio actions. So I'm looking at things where the lines are organized in the same orientation. Think about the texture. And a lot of this is going to be painting, but with different, when we explore the brush tool in both Photoshop and in Illustrator, you can see it kind of, you can have that hand mark that isn't quite available when you use the mouse or the traditional brushes. You can have the mark of the hand and really have some nice texture even in a digital space. Definitely have fun playing around with color and the width of your line as well, and have some texture. Now everything should be made within the software. You can download brushes off the internet if you have your some sites that you like to download brushes from. I encourage that to help you link your mark, but you shouldn't be taking images off the internet for this. Everything needs to be created in the software. Again, this has a photograph, but I was thinking a little bit about glitch art, and you can also, because I keep talking about referencing the hand, but you can also reference the digital as well. I think this is a rug, but I liked it. I thought it fit, because each mark is a little different. Again, you can think about visual energy still. So we have this kind of nice cluster here, and these sort of opener clusters that might be fun to play around. Pull that everything you've worked on and build upon it. So these are some student examples. So this student made all these different marks, but also kind of added a little bit extra uh, to it. They were responding to these marks and then worked a little bit further out there after. Same thing, so playing our different marks, different lines, and adding where they kind of stop and end here. But don't feel like it has to look like something. Now this is kind of breaking the rules. I wanted all the lines to be in the same orientation, and they should also be in the same orientation. But I really liked the variety in approaches that the student created. And sort of this color scheme was really nice. Keeping it that those grays, those blues, but then the little bit of red and green was a very nice added touch. Again, there's this really nice mark at the hand here. Students really get excited to play around with colors, playing around with the brush tool offerings in both the softwares. Very fun and textural. And let it be abstract. I really, again, I'm going to keep pushing abstraction because a lot of students, when I make things that look like things, I challenge you to make something that doesn't have to look like a thing. Let it be on its own. And that itself is very interesting. Like, this is very gorgeous. So 2.3 is divide and arrange, which again is be very specific. So a shape can be divided into parts, which in turn can serve as components for a new structure. So you're going to create a large geometric shape. So if you're looking at the textbook, at the top of page 80, you kind of have those three things. That's actually the perfect explanation for this piece. So the subdivided in 15 shapes, which we'll talk about a little bit more next week, actually. So these three representations, so you have one whole, one divided, one lastly reconstructed. And the document size is adjusted, and that is written on the assignment page and also that sets PDF that you received. So this is going to be challenging. You're creating something, pulling it apart and rearranging. So you're thinking about the shapes and how they can create things in different forms. So again, it's kind of hard to find a artist for the studio action, but we're looking at a lot of geometric work. So we can see this like one large shape and these smaller shapes that are built in, and that might be a great form of inspiration. Let it be sort of abstract. Don't let it, again, try not to make something look like a thing. So this is an artist, they really make these sort of bold geometric shapes. And again, these could be rearranged and rethought of. And that's the artist's name there. I encourage you to look them up. So I think this could be really fun. Playing around with the shape tool. This could be, I believe this would be more fun in Illustrator because you can really create those big bold shapes, playing around with the pen tool if you haven't yet. Student work. So we have this piece, everything pulled apart and then rearranged. So I believe it kind of started over here, so they kind of took it right to left as opposed to left to right, because we typically read things right to left instead of left to right. So we took this piece, reconstructed, so everything's pulled apart. You can see all the individual parts, and then recreated. This could be nice if you add a little bit more color, a little more variety, but it definitely meets all the required parts. Again, so he started to look like his thing. It has a little man, it's like a beach. And then reconstructed, it's kind of on its new form. And then it's something about seeing the process of constructed to deconstructed, which is really nice. You can even take it vertical. And the student actually really enjoyed this process and actually did a fourth part too. So 2.6 is, so your units are building blocks which united can create form an organic structure. So you're going to create a form, and that singular form is going to create this structure. So you're going to use transformations within the composition. So if you're looking at the textbook on 82, that's a great idea. So we kind of have this one form, and that form itself is how it's being built. Think of it like you're building a house and you're only using one tool, and everything's made from that one tool, or that one unit, or one modular structure. So we have the shape, and it's repeated and kind of resized to create this whole form. Not quite a singular shape, but it's kind of like the similar idea where it's built upon to create this larger form. So when we get into think about nature, a lot of stuff from nature is sort of a singular unit that's built upon itself. So these little barnacles, these little pods, kind of create these little forms, which would be great for inspiration. And that doesn't have to be from nature, so we have these legs and this huge piece made from legs. So maybe you take a photograph of a leg and you chop it off and you build upon it, and that could be something very fun. So student work, so created this form, and we have this kind of two different colors creating these things, which kind of remind me of those brushes at the car wash now that I'm looking at them. Sort of this weird mechanical thing. I wonder if that's where they got their inspiration. So we have these brush tools kind of building upon and creating this sort of soft piece. Now these are so completely different, but made from the same as instructions. Simplicity thing about sort of we had this sort of chaos here and these smaller units going around. You can definitely change the scale, the orientation. This one was so cool with these little octopus arms, and it's not just a few, it is sort of this huge mass, which is really great. So hope you get some inspiration. We will do a few demos that might be helpful for this, and I hope you get excited for this unit.